Braves baseball only 36 days away. They open up in San Diego Thursday, March 27th at 4:10. That's Eastern Standard Time, of course, playing those Padres. Welcome to episode 186 of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the PA voice of the Rome Emperors, Larry Gardner, and our fabulous producer, Wayne Ridenauer in wonderful Memphis, Tennessee. You can catch us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and of course, Apple and Spotify. And if you like the content, please give us a thumbs up, leave a review, and hit that notification button so you get notified for our latest content. Personal X's at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWY Jr. for Wayne, at LG for Real Though for Larry Garner, and at Corder Todd, who's out tonight calling the men's and women's Clayton State game versus Georgia College and State University. Earlier, the Lady Lakers lost a close one, 67-64 to the Bobcats of GCSU. Wayne, how you doing this evening, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well, but not quite as well as William Byron. He managed to pull off a two-peat or a repeat, I don't know what you call it, at the Daytona 500, and it kind of fell into his lap because of a late race accident there that collected a whole bunch of guys, and he swimmed his way through it. And then after the race, a couple of the guys got tangled up there a little bit. How about you, JJ? How's things going over there?
Man, I'm doing well. Yeah, I was, what was it, Stenhouse and Kyle Busch seem to always find each other in the pits after the race. It was a very similar race to last year in the way it ended, right, Wayne? Ended under caution, kind of?
Well, except for last year's race didn't last for 3 days.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that was a lot of rain delays. I'm doing well, Wayne. Appreciate you asking, but not as well as the Four Nations face-off, though. 10.1 million viewers in the USA-Canada match last Saturday night, a 203% increase from the 2016 World Cup of Hockey matchup when those two teams played. So hockey is alive and well in both Canada and America. And again, USA and Canada will face off Thursday for the Four Nations Championship on ESPN at 8 o'clock p.m. Larry, how you doing, buddy?
Everything is well. JJ up here in Northwest Georgia, we didn't get no snow, so life is good. And there won't no ice either because it seems like people forget anything that was in a driving manual anytime ice is on the road. So as long as we were able to avoid that whole process, life is good. Thank you for asking. Baseball season, full blast. Softball season in college, full blast. MLB right around the corner. It is about the time going to change in a couple of weeks. So it's I'm looking forward to the longer days and the longer nights and the warmer temperatures for sure.
Yeah. We'll all be able to go out there and get some natural vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that warm weather today as well, or in the future, I should as well. What's on tap for today's show? We will talk about the college football playoff expansion, which is going on as we talk. There was a meeting in New Orleans between the Big Ten and the SEC, athletics, administrators, all that good stuff in New Orleans. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Braves. Where does their offense rank in terms of Major League Baseball? And it's 50-50 if DeShaun Tate, basketball insider, joins us talking all things basketball. I know he had a prior, obligations, and we'll see if he's able to join us tonight or not. But until then, let's talk a little college basketball. Let's just do a little round table, guys. It's been an interesting season. 9 SEC teams are ranked. Wayne, your Memphis Tigers are right there battling in AAC play. And Wayne, it's been an up and down college basketball season. Why don't you take it away, man? What do you see this year? Who do you like? And what are some teams that you think are on the bubble looking in right now, fellas?
Well, overall, I would say that it has gotten a lot more even across the board, and I think that the way that their players are able to, go from one school to another, and you can, get a player on your team. It's like every team has a bunch of seniors on the team that were not there the previous years, and it makes it a little bit more even. But it can also be frustrating when teams keep getting losses and stay in the top 25. But that'll be a whole discussion for another day. I hope they get this ranking and stuff straightened out before they start the brackets, because seeding matters, and seeding is usually done based on ranks.
Yeah, Larry, pretty interesting college basketball season thus far. What stood out to you, man, in your eyes?
What stood out so far to me is how much college basketball season has looked very similar to college football season.
Yeah.
You know,
with the SEC and the Big Ten.
Correct, with the SEC and the Big Ten dominating the rankings, and the upset specials where anybody can be anybody. Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do, to your point, Wayne, with kids with NIL, kids with transfer portal. You know, it is college sports where you had to go recruit a high school player that could fit your system with the one and done kind of thing. One and done is still there, but now if you need that one player that could push you over the top, it does not have to be a high school person that's a senior coming in as a college freshman. Now you can go get you a college sophomore, a college junior, or a college senior, or even a fifth-year senior that can plug in that hole. So you got somebody that you don't have to really spend a lot of time trying to get them acclimated to the college environment. They are literally plug and play ready. Yeah. Not only that, you got kids that are coming in now who are not in such a hurry to get to the NBA. Look at who would probably be your consensus number one pick this year at Duke, talking already about, hey, I might want to come back and do this again next year. If you're good enough, the money's going to be there. Yeah. So I think what you're getting an influx of kids who are just enjoying the time being on the college campus and the college environment because they see what the NBA is becoming, and it's not appealing to them. So I like the parity. I like that. To your point earlier, Wayne, anybody from 1 to 25 can be anybody on any given night.
Yeah, and sometimes outside of that top 25,
as we saw already a couple of times this week.
Yeah,
so I'm really looking forward to your point how the seedings are actually done, because Selection Sunday's 3 weeks away.
Something like that. We'll be in the conference tournaments here in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm looking forward to seeing the parity. I think you're going to have where, we're looking for upsets from a 16 seed to try to beat a 1 seed. You're liable to get a 1 seed and a 14 seed.
Yeah.
Or probably 1 through 14 this season, to where you can get some really good games,
Yeah.
So
and there's always that FAU coming up too that you never did expect.
Hey, trust me, there's always going to be the FAU. There's always going to be the Chicago Loyolas.
Yeah.
It's you got Wichita State Shockers from years back, But that's what makes it what it is, and that's what people enjoy. I really do think I hate that people don't really get into it until after the Super Bowl, because there's a lot of good games that are being played throughout the NFL playoff season that people don't get a chance to pay attention to. And so now you got to really rewind the clock and binge watch basketball all the way to mid to end of February to get caught up with what's going on.
Right. Now, if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, it's a little bit easier to pay attention to college basketball once it gets started. But I don't want.
But think about it, man. And JJ, you can speak to this, man. Look at what Alabama and Auburn has done in college basketball. That's usually the big matchup in football in the Iron Bowl, and now you got blood in the water with those two teams. Look at what Dan Hurley's been able to do with UConn and some of the challenges he's faced this year with that team. So it's just so much parity, and anybody can beat anybody, and it makes it engaging and it's entertaining, and it's not, you got the one superstar kid that's gonna take over and do like what Cooper Flag is doing at Duke. There's a bunch of kids that really enjoy playing with each other, and you can tell it in the way the game is being portrayed on the court.
Yeah, I think the like you kind of mentioned, and I'm piggybacking on it. I mean, 9 teams ranked currently in the top 25 from the SEC, and it looked like they could get as many as 14 out of the 16 teams in the dance. And Georgia's one of those teams right now. They're on the last 4 out, or the first 4 out of the tournament on the bubble watch. So Georgia really, really needs to step up play a little bit better and win some of these games down the stretch. They got a big one on the road at Auburn this weekend versus that number one team in the country. Lost by 2 points earlier in the year. Luke Kane off the bench can shoot the three, play a little defense. Georgia's very good at protecting the rim. They block shots really well. They're second best in the SEC, the top 10 in the country, right around that cusp. Mike White's got them playing pretty good, but they got to be able to beat that upper echelon of teams against quad one teams. I think they only have 2 or 3 wins, and one of those being in St. John's. But one thing about the Dogs, and that's made me look forward, is they have only lost to good teams. There's no bad losses in there. So if they're able to win, I think 19 games in the regular season, they need to win 3 of these last 4 or 5 games, whatever it is. And I think if the Dogs are able to get a win in the tournament, I think they'll be in the dance. So that's been interesting locally around here. Georgia State's going to have to win the Sun Belt tournament to get into their league, but they're playing much better since the last time we had Dave Cohen on. They've won 4 games. Last time they had only won 8 games. So if added to that win total, got it to 12. So there's lots moving on in college basketball. But yeah, it's really interesting to see what's going on in Alabama right now, where last Saturday they met and gave a great show for the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. And it's just been a pleasure to watch college basketball this year. And honestly, because the NBA to me has gone in a different direction. And college basketball is refreshing. These guys, as you mentioned, Cooper Flagg, willing to stay another year. So you're going to start seeing that. I've said that on this podcast before. I think you're going to see guys start doing that more often. Go, you know what? Playing in March Madness is pretty cool. And this NIL deal is pretty cool. And I get a fine education on top of it, just in case this basketball thing goes our way. So I like it. I like what I see in college basketball, fellas. It's going to be fun in March with the 68-team field and the play-in games. We've seen some 16 seeds upset the 1 seeds in recent years. So the field's extremely wide open, and you mentioned it. The Cinderellas are about to start shooting. You're about to hear about this school that you've never heard of or this mascot that you've never heard of, and you're about to get some epic television moving forward, because this might be the best college basketball season of my lifetime in terms of who can win it all. There's not an extremely dominant team outside of the Auburns and the Dukes, but those teams can be beaten, as we've seen in conference play. So moving forward, just excited about the pandemonium that could unfold, fellas.
All right, looks like we got a guest here that's checked in with us.
All right, we got DeShaun Tate on the line at Tate's Take Hoops on X. DeShaun, good to have you on, man. How you doing?
Outstanding. Listen, I appreciate you guys for having me on. Running a little late, a little behind schedule, so please forgive me in advance. Life is still life in a little bit, getting adjusted to life as a dad of a 2-year-old. So we're still trying to figure everything out from a time management standpoint, but I'm still grateful nonetheless that you guys allowing me to have on. And so listen, I mean, the phone starts ringing around the same time this time of the year. That can only mean one thing: the most, highly anticipated and unpredictable time of the year. It's like Mariah Carey on Christmas. When you start hearing Mariah Carey on Christmas, then you must know we're getting ready for March Madness in the world of the Tate residents. So thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I'll start you out with the March Madness question, and we'll gradually move to the NBA, and we'll get you all your busy day. And yeah, man, it's wide open. We were just kind of talking about that while you were coming on. Give us some of your favorites in the tournament. Maybe some Final Four favorites. Maybe someone that we aren't talking about that we should be talking about. Just give us a couple teams that have caught your eye, DeShaun.
Yeah, obviously it's still really, really early. Tons of basketball still left to play, as you know. And, of course, all of this is a little bit subject to change. When I saw, the big game at the Champions Classic in Lynn. I was so blown away and impressed by a team that had a lot of turnover in terms of its roster construction and bringing in a new coach, head coach, Coach Pope over in Lexington, and just the camaraderie and the chemistry that those guys had developed and established between one another in a very short time span. I was really, really on that Kentucky train, and it's kind of taken me a while to get off of it. While I'm still on that train, I've kind of replaced them as my front runner for a national championship. While I do believe that they are still very, very good, one of the best shooters in the country, and Breyer, who's a transfer from Dayton, but with a very relatable coach there, by the way. But I think they're replaced by the team that I think has, been considered more of a mid-major program to a degree, coming from mid-major conferences, now making its way into the Big 12 conference, looking like it's going to win the conference for only the second year in a row that they've been in the existence of the Big 12, and that's the Houston Cougars. They've got a guy or two still remaining left from the team that went to the Final Four back in 2021. And they've got some good pieces over there. And if anybody is deserving of a national championship by this point, certainly Hall of Fame, then it's got to be Kelvin Sampson for everything that he's kind of been throughout his tenure and whatnot. I mean, they're more so known being that grown man team. They definitely. They definitely are the ones that are a little undersized to a degree, but they play that that small ball style, non-traditional style of basketball, very hard nosed on the defensive side, but bring some offense to go along with it. So I love them as well. I think that Gonzaga has a much better chance than a lot of people really believe. We sit back and we talk about teams like Gonzaga each and every single year, and kind of fail into find a way to break through, if you will. One of these years, I think they'll eventually do it. Is this year the year? I don't know. I know they've kind of disappointed quite a few people up to this far, but they've got one of the best point guards in the country in Ryan Nembhard. They've got Ike in the front court. They've got a really good team, some good supporting cast surrounding those guys too. So that's just a few of them between Kansas, Houston, Gonzaga, Alabama, obviously one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. A lot of people, we talked about the number one versus number two in the SEC. We know that it's a loaded field, but when you start talking about Nate Oates and preparing for, a deep run, they shoot a lot from three, one of the highest scoring teams in the country, coming off their first Final Four. I think when they meet up with Auburn, they're going to knock Auburn off in a really tough place to play in Auburn as well. So those are just a couple of my favorites. I know there's some mid-majors and high majors sprinkled in there as well that I think can make some pretty deep runs.
DeShaun, looking at the current landscape of the NCAA tournament, the whole March Madness, and college basketball in a whole, from your perspective, how has the shift in the NIL deals and the transfer portal really affected the competitive balance of college basketball as we now know it? And then how might this play out in the March Madness tournament?
Yeah, I think as far as NIL goes, I think one of the unfortunate things that NIL has done, and I was always, one of the ones that think that it's good that players have their opportunity to be able to get a couple tokens in there. I call them tokens, a couple tokens in their pockets and what have you. But I think it's a couple things. I think it's good and it has its disadvantages as well. The disadvantage here, I think, is the fact that I think at least it feels like, anyways, right, that you've got guys who kind of seem like they've stopped trying to, just kind of, I hate to say work as hard. I know that's not really the term that I'm really going for, but seems like they're not really having the same goal or same dream aspirations of next level basketball, NBA, because what came along with playing in the NBA was the big time money. Now you're getting the big time money by having a chance to play on the collegiate level. And it kind of seems like guys have kind of almost indirectly, unintentionally kind of nailed it in a little bit. And not saying that guys aren't, still thriving and try to get to the NBA, but because of that lump of income, it just inevitably, it just kind of seems like guys just aren't pushing it as hard as they once were to get to that next level, to be able to get that kind of, make that kind of a money. Now, the reason I say it's good is because it's keeping guys in college basketball. One of the biggest gripes that I think that we've had about college basketball over the last X amount of years is the name recognition. As soon as you get to a point where you start learning a little bit about a guy, it's March already. He's already on his way out the door. He's one and done. They don't stick around long enough for you to be able to, get to know what any of these guys are about and what they can do, because they bolt so fast for the league. A lot of that is because they wanted the money, and you can't be mad at them for that. NIL, obviously putting money in their pockets, keeping them to stick around a little bit longer so that we can get to know these guys a little bit longer. Look at Hunter Dickinson. There's a couple others, and there's some pretty big names sprinkled in there as well. So it's not going to be a ton of guys. It's not going to be all the guys. I think that there's bonuses, there's plus and minuses to all of this. But every guy is not going to get the same kind of bag, nor do I think everybody deserves the same kind of bag either. So I think that it has been good and bad for the sport.
Yeah, DeShaun, one of the other things that I like to look at this time of year with college basketball is who looks like they might be a dark horse, maybe flying under the radar, that could make the tournament or will make the tournament and surprise everybody. And this may not be a surprise to some people, but I'm looking at St. John's and I'm thinking extremely experienced, what I would guess would be a Hall of Fame type coach, and players who really want to win. And so they would be kind of my dark horse as far as somebody that will get in the tournament. And hopefully the odds makers in Vegas won't get wise to this too soon, and I'll be able to put down a very profitable bet on them.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy to think. I mean, at this point, are we talking about like mid majors, high majors, somebody outside the top 25 at this point is what you're referencing?
Well, no, just St. John's is in the top 25, but I think they're still being overlooked even though they're ranked 10 right now.
They are. They are. They are. I think that Marquette could be a real player in this thing. I think that they have one of the I personally think that Cam Jones is the best point guard in the country. I know that's kind of up for debate. There's a couple other names you can throw out there. I mean, Clemson being a team that I think is not only behind, a Duke, but also maybe even a Louisville in this situation. They've got a lot coming back. Ian Shefflin and a couple others. Hunter's coming back as well from a team that went to the Elite Eight on last year. So I think that they're on the outside looking in. Maryland is a team that I think not only can have that kind of positioning, but also under Kevin Willard being the head coach there, got a good chance to still be able to, win the Big Ten that nobody's really talking about, over there. And so I think that they have just as good of a chance as anybody. People are always going to talk about there's 12 to 15 teams that can be standing on the ladders in San Antonio, cutting down the nets and all this other kind of stuff. I never think that there's that many. I don't think Maryland is necessarily one of those teams, but if we're talking about to be able to make it to the Final Four, I think that is a realistic possibility. They've got a guy over there who's a true freshman, Derek Queen, who's somewhere right around 6'10", 6'11", about 250 pounds, got a pretty good handle on it as well. He was the #1 ranked kid in the country coming into his sophomore year for this particular class, and he's really looking like it. Now, granted, I know this isn't nothing to necessarily be blown away by, but I kind of compare him to a guy that they had there before named Diamond Stone. But before we start looking at how guys are compared to the next level, let's appreciate who those guys appear to look like on the collegiate level. So I know that a lot of people are going to have love for some of the Creightons and some of those teams like that. I'm not as high on Creighton as a lot of other people are. Maybe St. Mary's being one of those. I might have been a year ahead of myself. I thought last year that the New Mexico Lobos, led by Richard Pitino, could have been a real player in making themselves a run to the Final Four. Jamal Mashburn's kid was over there. Eddie Housen's kid was over there. They're not there anymore, but they're having a fantastic season. Looking forward to see what happens with them on tonight against Boise. But I think that they have, a lot of this stuff is going to really just depend on the seeding and so forth. And, just luck just happen to, just the way that the cookie crumbles and things just happen to go your way. You get hot at the right time and so forth. But like I said, St. John's is definitely one of those teams. I mean, you can't count out Rick Pitino, who's won these championships, gone to the Final Four multiple times, did it at Kentucky, done it at Louisville, got Iona in the tournament. Got Providence, I think, to a Final Four in '87 or something crazy like that. Keep your eyes on this kid you're talking about, St. John's, Davon Smith, excuse me. He's a local Georgia kid, and he's bounced around a little bit, played over at Utah, played at Mississippi State, played at Georgia Tech, found him a home under Pitino at St. John's. He's been really, really good. A lot of aggression from that standpoint and high athleticism as well. But I think if we're talking about in terms of maybe like making a run to maybe like a Sweet 16 and maybe nobody else that, seen coming, check out the Southland. They're number one in the conference, coached by head coach Will Wade. If you're looking at McNeese State, they've got a phenomenal team. I thought they had a really good chance to do something special on last year, like maybe win a game in the tournament. That didn't happen. If things go the right way for them, that we could be talking about them having that kind of a postseason this year.
You're listening to DeShaun Tate, Basketball Insider, right here on ATL Prime Sports. DeShaun, Georgia Bulldogs haven't had a lot of success in tournament play in recent years. Haven't been there, it seems like, in like 20 years. I know they had the 08 run. I think they had one other random run. But their chances are dwindling. I said earlier, I think they got to win three of these last regular season games and get a tournament win, and they're in the tournament. Do you agree?
Well, it's more than doable. I'll tell you what, if they win this next game, it's going to account for probably all three that they need. They got a big-time game coming up this weekend on the road at Auburn. Obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that they're the number one team in the country. The likelihood of that happening, we know, is very far and few in between. But guys got to put on their shorts one at a time, just like everybody else. So I like what Asa Newell is doing over there. He's a phenomenal freshman, and he's really one that's really, really hard to guard. They need a couple more pieces over there. Coach White has done a pretty good job by Georgia standards anyways, at least being competitive, and again, in the toughest league in the conference. But if not, there's games that you just got to win that's remaining on the schedule. If it's not the Auburn one, that's fine. You're talking about after that playing the number two. You go from playing the number one team in the country one week to playing the number two country team in the country the very next game, and that's the one you really need. Why? Because that's the rivals. You're playing against Florida. It's on your home court there in Athens, and I think that that's something you catch somebody sleeping. You're giving everybody that your best shot. Texas is a winnable game, more realistic than probably some of the other games. I think that that's a possible do, but again, on the road at South Carolina, turn around and play Vanderbilt. There are no stinkers or sleepers in this type of a conference, but Georgia's one of the reasons behind why that is. So I think realistically, we could be having a conversation about them potentially playing themselves to being on the bubble, or potentially, having a little bit of help by winning some games in the conference tournament, and then maybe seeing their names being called to participate in Dayton in the first four. But they're going to need a little bit of help by knocking off a team that most people wouldn't suspect that they would, and that probably needs to happen sooner than later. And they got the chances in front of them with number one and number two.
Yeah, DeShaun, I'm my head just continues to circle around at so many SEC teams, and you got the Auburn, Alabamas, and the Floridas, but kind of those mid tiers, the Tennessees, the Texas A&Ms, the Ole Miss. Realistically speaking, what do you feel like? Because I know there's a lot of people from Tennessee who love listening to us and tuning in to us, man. What do you what do you realistically think the Volunteer shot is in the tournament if they do get to make it to that level?
And this is I'm almost curious to ask: did somebody ask you to ask me this, or is it really just super genuine, just out of nowhere question? Just curious.
Hey, somebody asked me to ask you.
Yeah, and DeShaun, my mom, which is she graduated from Tennessee, so she's always interested in somebody talking. Be nice now. Well, you don't have to be that nice, but we like to know the truth. That's what we like to know.
Well, you've come to the right place. I'm not a believer. I'm just going to be really transparent. We're talking about regular season. I love the job that Rick Barnes has been able to do and put together. It was very similar to the way that it was at Texas and Austin. And I give them credit for adding some offense to some really, really, really good elite style defense that they've always kind of had under Barnes. When we start talking about putting themselves in a win or go home or a one and done type of scenario, I don't love it. I think Sweet 16 is a realistic player. Anything before that, I think would not surprise me. If we're talking about going to the Elite Eight, I think that there's a chance for that, depending on what kind of draw that they get within the tournament. Final Four is just not something that I see happening. I just don't. I like the team. I don't love the team, but I never really loved the team. I'll always appreciate how hard that they play, how hard that they work, how much they get after it. So much about that team. I really, really believe, when you start talking about March, it's always going to be about the depth, which I think that they go deep with guys who are really hungry and play hard, but not necessarily with a ton of talent, right? And it's all about, obviously having the good coaching. And I think that they do have that. Is it one that's made for March? Probably not much. But I do think that they have a coach that knows how to win, probably just not knowing how to win when it matters the most. So much is going to come down to the guard play between Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler. The health of Zakai Ziegler sometimes tends to concern me a little bit, if I'm just being transparent. If they're on the floor, I obviously feel a lot better about their chances. But there's only a few teams that I just don't put a ton of stock in when March rolls around, when March specifically rolls around. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side of the fence that you live on, um, the Rick Barnes led Tennessee Volunteers is definitely at the top, certainly really close to the top of that list for me.
And you're listening to DeShaun Tate, basketball insider, right here on ATL Prime Sports. DeShaun, I'd like to move from the college level to the pro ranks. Got to talk about that Luka trade a little bit. What do you think the chances the Lakers win the West and get to the finals one last time with LeBron James and Luka paired up together now?
Yeah, honestly, I only really see, two or three teams in there that I really believe is gonna represent the West, realistically. OKC is obviously at the top of that league. I think they got a big time
Yeah,
game. Is it tonight or
SGA.
tomorrow this week? Against Cleveland, the number one in the West versus the number one in the East, which obviously is poised for a really big game and all that good stuff. But I think that there's a good chance between, OKC, the Lakers, and the Denver Nuggets. I think
Yeah.
that Denver's experience, knowing what it takes, being able to get there, some help to some key guys, Aaron Gordon specifically being one of those guys. But I think that is something that will ultimately help Luka Doncic in terms of the trade. I mean, it only makes sense. People talk about how much sense it made for later. I'm talking about how much sense it makes for now and for later. I don't think that they were getting closer to where they ultimately want to get to, especially before LeBron decides to hang it up, whenever that is. But I think that there's a lot of people that have concerns about, saying, oh, they only have one basketball. These are two guys that are ball dominant, whatever else. Well, these are also two guys that are tend to be unselfish to a fault sometimes too, being a little bit over passive. So I just think it depends on which you get on that particular night. I don't see any issues between those two guys. 77 and 23 together, I feel like you put two of the best five basketball players that are in the NBA right now on the same floor, and they might just very well be the top two, or I guess if you throw Jokic in there, then, and Curry, two of the top four, two of the top five, no question. Then that's always going to put them in position, especially with the high IQ and the winning pedigree that LeBron James has. The question is going to be, is JJ Redick the coach that is, carved out to be someone that could take them to the promised land? I think that their chance of representing the West is, now that they have Luka, is just as good as just about anybody. I mean, OKC has to stay healthy. Obviously, Chet Holmgren is going to be a big piece to that. The Denver Nuggets obviously are still really, really good. But I like LA a lot more than probably some people do. I don't know how realistic they are, whether they're Laker haters or what have you, but they are going to eventually and ultimately need some help in the front court. I know that the deal with Mark Williams didn't go through, and they are going to need some assistance there in the front court to kind of help them out a little bit. Because the outside shooting with, AR-15 and obviously Dalton Connect is only going to take you so far. So they will need some kind of presence. The closest thing they can get to an Andrew Bynum type at very minimum, I think is going to help them catapult themselves to being in the winner's circle at some point, to even at least be able to hold a real conversation about them contending for something serious.
DeShaun, I want to wrap up your basketball chat real quick, talking about our own local home team, the Atlanta Hawks. You hate the injury to Jalen Johnson. You hate it because, he was on his way to an all-star level campaign. But they made some trades. They got rid of DeAndre Hunter. You got some talent in back with Terrence Mann and Karis LeVert and Georges Niang, and you're seeing some things happening with the number 1 pick in Zachary Reese-Shea. Realistically speaking, from your opinion, how far away is this Atlanta team from really being able to make some noise in the East?
In terms of at least getting back to where they once were, to Eastern Conference Finals and at least competing?
Yes.
I feel like far, but I felt like far at that time, right? Because I wasn't able at that time to see them put it together. Because if you can remember, taking yourself all the way back to that year where I think, what was that, 2021, I feel like it was, or something along those lines. They were never healthy all at the same time. They always had injuries, and the moves that they made, they got better with it. You brought over Bogey, obviously. You had, Reddish, who was starting to show some more flashes and so forth of what he could be. Herter shooting the ball, obviously. Trey. Don't forget you had a veteran in a Lou Williams that you was able to bring off the bench and help contribute quite a bit. Clint Onyeka, blah, 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 blah. All things being considered, I think that they're still trying to keep that same mantra and keep that same mentality of going to get guys that they think, fits well, good fitting pieces. But they're gonna eventually need some sort of a player to complement Trae Young. I get it. It's definitely been, it's been great the way that Dyson Daniels has kind of come in and changed the mentality on the defensive side of the ball, and that's been contagious and all these different things. I think one of the issues that they have is in the front court not having really much of a guy that can go and have a go-to move to get himself a shot. A lot of guys are just tending to kind of capitalize off of Trae Young's IQ / cerebral play, being able to have the quick first step to get his defender trailing behind him. And then, of course, a front court player for the Hawks, his defender steps up to help on defense. And next thing you know, you're trying to decipher between Trae throwing a lob for, a dunk, or whether he's throwing up a teardrop. And as long as you can run and jump, anybody can put that dunk down, just going as John Collins. So, I think that, I see the vision in which the direction that they're trying to go towards, but at the end of the day, you need the Jimmys and the Joes. I think that they've really got to put a player in there that has some experience of winning first and foremost before anything. A guy that knows how to win. A guy that has a winning pedigree, has been a part of some winning teams, some winning franchises, and things of that nature. The know-how. Guys are going to go out there and play hard, and I get it. The Atlanta Hawks, they have an identity. If not nothing else, they're going to go out there and play their butts off. And they're going to compete, no matter who's on the floor. But it's, at the end of the day, it's about adding a number to the left side of the result column. And that's not something that they have been able to do consistently. In order for them to do that, I really believe that they are going to have to add some talent. But here's the thing. I don't always trust in the way that they draft. I don't typically love the moves that they make when they make the moves during the trade deadline. And and then you never look at anybody wanting to come over this way. That's worth writing home, home to mom about when free agency rolls around. So I think they've got some things that are certainly going against them. I think that the franchise can kind of burn some people's hands a little bit in terms of the word getting around that, Atlanta's maybe not necessarily the place. I know there's been a lot of conversation, if you're familiar with the area, about, people talking about all the different girlfriends and having a house and all this other type of stuff in Atlanta. So nobody wants to come here getting caught up with side pieces and whatever else, what have you, wherever that narrative came from. But I definitely don't think the way that they did a Paul Millsap, for example, helps a whole lot. The way that they did a Al Horford helps a whole lot. Who knows what the truth may come out to be if Trae Young decides to leave someday and decides to tell people about it, what went on in Atlanta, if anything went on in Atlanta. I think that there's just I think sometimes that there's just it's like three blind mice, right? There's too many people that are in charge. Is it Tony Ressler, the owner? How much part does the son have in this? How much part does the wife? And of course, I'm just being a little tongue-in-cheek in this. Grant Hill, Kyle Korver, Trae Young, Trae's dad, this one, that one. Who's the decision maker? The coach. It's just so much, that goes into it. I don't know who the real decision makers are here. Landry Fields, how can I dare leave him out? He's supposed to be the top guy, for crying out loud. So I think sometimes it just feels like the blind leading the blind sometimes, and that doesn't really necessarily help, in my opinion, a whole lot. I feel like that there's just really not a ton of structure, winning pedigree, winning structure in the front office, and I think that's kind of where it starts.
Well, DeShaun, I appreciate you coming on, man. I agree with what you said about the Hawks. Heck, they could have had Tyler Hero. They took Cam Reddish. They could have had back in the day. They could have gone Chris Paul, but they took Marvin Williams. We could go on and on. I agree.
Don't forget Sheldon Williams. Don't forget Sheldon. Don't forget the landlord.
The landlord.
Those names can go on and on. You bring Rasheed Wallace in for a day. You had Gasol. I mean, the list goes on. And Boris Diaw. The list goes on and on. So, no, listen. I really appreciate you guys for having me. Thank you so much. I can't wait to do it again. I know I'm just, sometimes I'm a live wire and I just go on and on and on. But thank you for sharing your space with me. And allowing me to be able to give a little bit of my expertise and just for valuing what I do. So I really appreciate it, and can't wait to do it with you guys again.
All right,
absolutely, DeShaun. We always love having you on, man, and can't wait to see your children there grow up. And congratulations yet again. And tell our listeners your social media and how they can follow you and get in contact with you.
For sure. You said children. I've only got one. You're trying to put more on me than I can afford. At Take Hoops. T-A-T-E-S. T-A-T-E-S-T-A-K-E. Hoops, H-O-O-P-S. We call it Where Basketball Lives. We got some really interesting stuff that's going to be coming down the pipeline. I want to be really transparent. We're still going to be covering basketball, specifically on the collegiate level, and on all ways of basketball as well, putting a little bit of a twist on it, a curveball on it just a little bit. I lost a brother some months ago, not even a full year yet, who was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia. So we're definitely going to start adding another element to as mental health is becoming like a real serious player here for not just athletes, but for all of us. Sometimes anxiety, just for the me and you and the regular person walking around, every day bagging groceries or flipping burgers and shaking fries at McDonald's. For everybody, the Uber drivers, everybody deals with mental health in one form or fashion. So We're going to interview some of these different athletes and talk about how mental health has kind of impacted their careers. So it's kind of like an older tribute to my brother a little bit. We're still going to be giving breakdowns of games and college basketball and what have you. So some really interesting things that are on the way. And I can't wait to share it with you guys. But until then, at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS, where basketball lives. I appreciate you guys for having me. Thanks much.
And we
All right.
appreciate you, DeShaun, and our thoughts and prayers are always with you, man. And you're
Thank you.
welcome anytime here on ATL Prime Sports, buddy.
Thank you much. Bye-bye.
All right, D.
Yes, sir. DeShaun Tate, again, at Tate's Take Hoops. We go from college and NBA basketball to college football. Big news. We kind of spoke about it earlier in the intro there. The college football playoffs has gone from 4 to 12 teams. Would you rather see 14 or 16 teams moving forward? And this all comes from this discussion is in response to an ESPN.com article by Heather Dinich about what the talk would be in Wednesday's college football meeting in New Orleans. And we'll go ahead and talk about that. It's on our Twitter page at ATL Prime Sports. Check us out and give us a vote. Tell us what you think, 14, 16, or just say, hey, I liked it the way it used to be. Comment with what you think. But, some of that discussion is going to revolve around the House versus NCAA ruling, future governance of college football, and, of course, the college football playoff format, which we're going to discuss here today. But also in less than a week, the College Football Playoff Management Committee will meet in Dallas to go over the recent 12-team playoff and talk about seeding, how it went. They'll kind of give their thorough review of that. So all that discussion brings up our discussion here, and that's what is behind all this 12, 14, 16 team playoff talk. We had a little conversation on Twitter about it earlier. Wayne, I'll let you take it away first, man. You were the first one. You said I wish it was 0.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts on this this quick expansion of the college football playoff.
Well, I'm one of the guys that likes the old way of doing it. Play all the games, play the bowl games, and then vote on number one and be done with it. But, and earlier I had said 0. But, upon thinking about it, I think if you're going to have a tournament, it should start at the end of August, and it should be 134 teams. And then towards the end of it, you'll know who's number one.
Just a single elimination. Every game matters.
Well, it wouldn't be single elimination. It'd be kind of a round robin thing. You get to set up your schedule, play a couple of conference games, then bowl games, and then, decide that way.
I like it, Wayne. I can't argue with you, man. Larry, what you got, man? You and I were in agreement, and we kind of like the lower numbers. But now that the cat's out of the bag, man, you said, well, I couldn't remember. Was it 14 or 16?
Yeah, I said 16. If you're going to have to do it that way, you need to go ahead and do 16. I would still prefer 8 because by the time you get to conference championship week, you can tell who the what we call the cream rises to the top.
Yeah. And
you can tell who the top 8 teams are who legitimately have a shot. It's like college basketball now. Anybody can beat anybody. But look, the SEC's got what? 6 of the top 10 teams ranked in the AP top 25. So football's the same way. It really is. I hate that the Georgias and the I can't even remember everybody else who went through the Oregons. There we go. The Georgias, the Oregons who got a bye week and played the whole season like champs. And just because they got a week off, they just weren't ready because they got a team that they had to face who was still in their normal routine. I know Georgia was really needing that week off to get most of their people healthy. But on a normal week, straight 7 days to prepare, I think Georgia Notre Dame's a different story. Same goes for Ohio State, Oregon, because we'd already seen the game before. So I really think that there are only 8 legitimate teams that can really that really by the time that you get through conference championship week can do so. But now what you're doing now is as our beloved TC always says, follow the dollar and you'll get your answer. And this is all about more money, more revenue, more, putting more in the pots of the people. They care less about the student athletes, care less about the programs. They could care less about the fans. They want what's going to put money in their pockets. And I think what you're going to do is you're going to keep trying to add more, and it's going to do more detriment to the sport than it is going to enhance it. And that's the biggest problem I foresee, even with the 16, because, I mean, it's college football. We're going to watch it regardless. We're hooked to it. But reasonably speaking, are you doing this for the teams that are going to be represented in said tournament, or are you doing it for what we really know what to be true, and that's the money grab?
Yeah.
Good points all around. I think what this means for college football in simple terms, it equals change, a lot of it, quickly. Look, I don't want this to be the college football playoff invitational for the Big Ten and the SEC. The talk about those conferences getting 8 teams in together, 4 apiece, I think that's asinine. I don't want it to be what the 4-team playoff was, which was basically an SEC Big Ten invitational as well. So I don't want to see that. I really want to see the rankings get involved. The top 16 teams get in, and usually your Power 5, and I'm throwing the Pac-12 in there because I think they'll eventually get to 8 teams or whatever back and get a football conference back. So I think if you win your Power 5 conference, you'll pretty much be in the top 16, and that's kind of what we were looking at. This right after Week 12, Arizona State was 15th. Clemson was 17th. So they're just right out of that top 16 range. And with the conference wins, everybody still would have gotten in. You would have seen the addition of Ole Miss, South Carolina, Miami, and Alabama. That would have probably been your 4 teams that would have gotten in. And maybe Iowa State would have gotten out or SMU. But, I just think you don't want to water this thing down. But I do think NIL and the transfer portal is still in its fairly infancy. So I think you project this out. I do think eventually you could see 16 teams that might have a shot at winning it, maybe 10 or 12, and then the extra are just extra. But I do think college football is getting more and more parity as time goes by with the transfer portal and the NIL deals. But I do think the college football playoff is what the FBS should go by. The top 16 teams make the tournament, eliminate conference championship games, making the regular season that much more important. Again, regular season Power 5 champion is probably going to be in your top 16 when it's all said and done. And I don't hate the idea in this Heather Dinich article about these play-in games, guys, and that's my next particular point in this conversation is these play-in games. So if they do go to, and these conference commissioners would agree to it. So if the ACC, the Big 12, let's say the Pac-12 gets back together and the Group of 5 and Notre Dame, everybody agrees to the 4-4, 2-2, one Group of 5 and possibly Notre Dame or another at-large team. If they agree to that, I would like to see that fourth place team in each conference play the 5th place team the last week of the season for that play-in game. So then you can have play-in games that might relate to the bowls. So you could have a play-in game as, let's say, the Liberty Bowl, or a play-in game in the Mobile or in this old Citrus Bowl. You can incorporate play-in games there. That might be exciting as well. What do you guys think about the possibility of a play-in game? Wayne, we'll get to you real quick, and then we'll go to Larry.
Well, that's something that I hadn't even thought about even a little bit as a play-in game. But if we did have a play-in game, the way you described it, there would not be a bye week. Is that right?
Yeah, it'd be no bye week.
Okay.
It'd basically be in lieu of conference championship games. The way I understood it, there'd be a play-in game because your conference champion would be in my format would be eliminated because your regular season conference champs wins it.
Right.
And then your second and third place team, they're in. But that 4th place team that had to play, or in the ACC's case, the second team would have to play the 3rd team because they only get 2 bids. Same with the Big 12, second would play 3rd. You'd see some more participation in that borderline team maybe get in with a similar record. So I think that's a fun fun ticket. I don't think it will ever happen, but that'd be a fun ticket for me to cash in and play, because I think play-in games, it just, again, coaches said it, players said it, athletic directors said it. They question the role of a conference championship game now. Larry, your thoughts on maybe the possibility of adding a play-in game to this bad boy?
No, I mean, you could get it to where it would actually work. I think it would be another reason to put something more competitive on the line, because you got something to play for, as opposed to just going straight into doing what you needed to do straight into the tournament. So and coaches will always love that, because players will seem to get, locked in, fired up, more into when they know there's something major on the line. So that would be a win-win for me, and from my perspective, it'd be a win-win for everybody involved. But then again, now they go into facing the conference champions of those four people, the Big Tens and those seeds, and going through there, and then now your next week game is a big one. I mean, they're gonna all be big, but you're probably going to have to take on the Ohio States, the Texases, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Michigans, the Penn States. So, I mean, you think about that. And TC would probably chop my head off for even saying this, but it's literally the BCS all over again.
Yeah.
You're just getting more football to watch, but the end result is the same. The BCS is literally taking the top 8 to 16 teams and ranking them and saying whoever's the best that passes the eye test is the champ. Well, the difference is just you're just sitting on the field, so
Yep.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there that play-in would be a interesting talking point if they ended up going that direction. Not saying they will, listeners. It's just an interesting talking point in that Heather Dinich article. Great article, by the way, if you're an ESPN Plus customer. If you're on the YouTube, I'll get Wayne the link, and we'll put it in the links down below the YouTube video. Guys, any final thoughts on 12, 14, or 16 college football playoff format?
Nah.
Good to go. Let's quickly go over Major League Baseball. Got the Braves hat on in the background. Got my Braves bobbleheads out. It's nearly baseball season. It's only around about 35 days away. With the addition of Jurjevich and Profar, how will the offense fare this season for the Atlanta Braves? Larry, I'll start with you, man. I think this could be one of the best offenses in baseball. People forget the Braves were at the end of the year last year.
Yeah, long as they see. Here's my thought process: the 22 team or the 23 team is kind of the precedent that's never done before. Last year's 24 team is the injury riddled team, so I think the reality is somewhere between the two. So what we need to find out is can everybody handle the load that needs to handle it until Acuna gets back? Where do you want to hit Profar? Are we going to get the Austin Riley that we've been used to seeing before he went down with injury? And the key I factor to me is Sean Murphy going to be that guy? Because if he doesn't, then we got an even bigger problem, because you're going to either be forced to bring up Chadwick Trump or Drake Baldwin way before time. So that being the case, I think there are a lot of questions. But offensively, we're going to be able to compete with anybody. We're going to be able to score runs as long as everybody do what the back of their baseball cards says.
Yeah.
We just need the pitchers to be able to the bottom half of that starting rotation is going to have to step up. And that's going to be the key to where you're either going to win or lose, is going to be what our starting rotation looks like. But putting runs, that piece of cake, it's going to be easy to do. Just everybody stay healthy. You stay healthy, you're probably going to win the NL East.
Yeah, I typically agree with you. I can't say that much about winning the NL East. I still give the edge to the Phillies. But I definitely think the Bravos have done crazier things. They ended the streak last year. The Phillies got the division. So maybe they'll be a little bit motivated. And it seems like they are, Larry. They're down there early. And look, Vegas agrees with us, guys. They got the third best odds in terms of winning the World Series at plus 900 from FanDuel. And Wayne, your Rangers are in the top 10 range there,
Yeah.
right there at the bottom of it. At what, plus 2,700 there. So your Rangers are right there in betting favorites for Major League Baseball. You got to feel good about that. But going back to the Braves.
I wanted to interject something real quick about Texas
ahead.
and the Braves. Is apparently the demand for pearl necklaces may be going up in Dallas or in Arlington, Texas, the whole state. Because we seem to have acquired.
Pearls go surging in the DFW area.
Yeah. So
Jock Peterson.
I'm looking forward to that.
Jocktober, as they called it here. But yeah, no. Look, you look at the best odds. It's obviously the Dodgers in that deep lineup. The Yankees at plus 700. Then again, the Braves at plus 900. The Phillies just behind them at plus 1,100, and the New York Mets also at plus 1,100. So the NL East is just loaded. I'm sure you'll see 3 teams make the postseason again. But look, I love the lineup, and you could do a lot. The projected lineup here from MLB.com, Profar, Riley, Ozuna, Olson, Albies, Harris, Murphy, Kelnick, and Arcia. Pretty good lineup. Once it's all said and done, it's all healthy. Spencer Strider coming back possibly by May. I've heard that Ronald Acuna Jr. says he's going to do everything he can to get in a Braves uniform at the end of April, early May as well, so that you don't have to go too long without these key portions of your lineup. And look, I don't think the Braves had to make many moves. They got a lot of options. Sure, they lost Max Fried. Sure, they lost Charlie Morton. But those were kind of expected. So your front end of that lineup solidified with Sale, Lopez, and Schwellenbach, who all had great years, obviously. Lopez was one of the ERA leaders in baseball. Sale won the Triple Crown. Schwellenbach had a great rookie season. You're expecting to see what he builds off of 123 and 2/3 innings pitched last season for Schwellenbach. 21 games pitched, 8-7 record, 3.35 ERA, 127 Ks. You'd love that. If he can give you 80% of that, that's a bonus. If Sale, you don't need Sale to get you to the postseason anymore with this offense if you're healthy. That's why I say I like the odds. I'm with Vegas. Chris Sale said it in his preseason presser. He's like, look, remember last year we were second best odds. We got a lot of these guys back, and we got a team that's hungry. And I go back to the fact they're motivated. They're all down there. Every single Braves player is already down there about a week and a half early. They were ready to get there, ready to get the rust knocked off. And I agree with you, Larry. I think the biggest question mark in this lineup to me is if Sean Murphy can hit the back of his baseball card, not have the oblique injury lingering, which I think it was all year last year. I think I saw a little bit less time on the pop time from home to second. I think I saw a little less power. I like a healthy Sean Murphy. Everybody forgets he's one of the better catchers in the league. So I'm anxious to see what happens. And it's not like the Braves don't have options at the back end of that rotation, Larry. As you mentioned, you got Smith-Shawver, who's got Major League Baseball experience. Hurston Waldrop, who's an MLB top prospect. Bryce Elder, who has MLB experience. And we all know how well he pitched here in Gwinnett last year in the AAA organization. Winning record, 10-6, 3.73 ERA, 102 strikeouts. So the guy can't pitch, Bryce Elder. So he could be one of these options that come in and fill the gap, do a stopgap early on till Strider gets back. And then you got 2 SSs in the lineup, Spencer Schwellenbach, Spencer Strider. I'm excited about baseball. You can probably tell in the tone of my voice I'm going long-winded here. But I like the Braves' chances, guys. I cannot wait to see this lineup with Profar, a guy that brings in a little bit more contact with the Truist Park that's fairly hitter-friendly. I like the Braves' chances. Wayne, your Rangers, again, we go back to them, top 10 in betting favorites. If they stay healthy, I bet you like your chances out there too, huh?
Well, yeah, I always get a pull for Texas, but I always prefer them to be under the radar, so I don't want to have too much attention on them just yet.
Sounds good. Larry, any final thoughts on the Braves and this projected lineup? We'll move forward. And, guys, we'll get our quick pick six results. Larry, congratulations. I need to get a trophy for this thing. 75, 56, and 1. Your strategy paid off, picking the exact same thing as Wayne. During the Super Bowl, you guys both went 3-3. Larry, you finished with 75 wins, 56 losses, and we had that one push. Wayne, you and TC finished. Todd got you by a game last week going 4-2, so you both finished at 72, 59, and 1. And by gum, that 50-yard touchdown pass, if we weren't on ATL Prime Sports right now, I'd probably drop an F-bomb, but I'm keeping it classy. The 50-yard touchdown pass in garbage time cost me a 500 season. I went 1-5, and I'm 65, 66, and 1. Don't want to talk about it anymore. That's the final results. We'll go to our final thoughts right here. Larry, since I think we share the same sentiment, go ahead and lead this off. I'll follow up, and Wayne will let you get out of here.
All right.
Yeah, man, we saw this weekend, we tried to watch some of what, when I was growing up, it was must-see TV in the NBA All-Star Game. You know, it was all about the kids on Friday. It was all about the 3 points, the dunk contest on Saturday, and it was all about the actual game itself on Sunday. It has become an absolute blank show. And there's no other way, if ands or buts to describe it. It's just, it is. And they've messed with it so long to where it has become almost virtually unwatchable. And I hate that it's become to that point. And to me, it's all about what Adam Silver and LeBron James has done to the basketball and the quality of basketball that we now watch in the All-Star Game, because they're too worried about protecting their ego as opposed to just going out and putting on a show for the fans. I would love to see the NBA do something very similar to what the NHL is doing with the Four Nations Challenge, where you take these global superstars that are from their own countries, whether you do Asia, Europe, Canada, and America, and let them go at it during All-Star Weekend in some sort of a tournament or whatnot. But you cannot. This AAU, I'm worried about my ego and my social media likes. It has absolutely demolished the game of basketball, and I hate to even see that I watch it half the time.
Yeah. Piggybacking on your points, man, the NBA needs to fix its All-Star Weekend. It's mostly, I should start saying by viewership. It's down 80% from previous years, down 13% from last season. So that's a huge step in the wrong direction. It's mostly because players have shown little to no effort on defense, and the same can now be said for the skills competition. We witnessed Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama. They're not even attempting shots, and again, a skills competition challenge. Players are complaining about the latest All-Star Game format. You got a problem. When you have players not even shooting the basketball, that's all you have to do. No defense, no nothing. You're in a skills competition. You bounce past it. You do everything. All you have to do is shoot a couple threes, shoot a lay-in or whatever. No effort there. No effort in the game. You're playing first to 40. The rules are just stupid. I hate to say elementary school words like that, but it was stupid. I watched 5 minutes of it. The dunk contest is still kind of cool. The three-point contest, but I just think the stars aren't playing. An hour before tip-off, LeBron James, the captain of a team, doesn't even play. Then doesn't even take the picture with his All-Star uniform on. The egos are killing basketball. But again, I share your sentiment. I think that this could all be fixed with a little effort, and a USA versus the world format might be the ticket moving forward. Wayne, your final thought, man, and get us out of here.
Well, we got Florida Atlantic will be visiting Memphis 1 o'clock Central Time at the FedEx Forum, and I will be there. And if you're so inclined to watch some NASCAR, they will be in your Atlanta Motor Speedway 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox, I believe. So you get to watch them go around in circles some more.
Yeah, Fast Atlanta, one of the faster tracks in the NASCAR circuit. We will be watching a couple laps of that. I always do. But that wraps us up for Wayne in Memphis, Larry in Adairsville, Todd calling the game at Clayton State as we speak, and I'm JJ right here in Lilburn. Thanks for watching ATL Prime Sports. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up and hit that notification button so you get notified with our latest content. We'll see you next week, everybody. Get you one.